Here are 5 things I wish I knew when I started producing in FL Studio. It's things that will make producing easier for you and make you feel less worried about the future, hopefully. Before we head into this video, jump down and give this video a like and subscribe. I can see that many of you aren't subscribed, so if you would do that, I would really appreciate it. I will make a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers. So the first thing I wish I knew when I started out producing was music theory, and not in the way that you have to go out and learn music theory right away. You can learn it over time. You don't have to spend a lot of money learning scales and chords. The thing I wish I knew when I started producing was you actually don't have to learn music theory to get started. Producing is not only about music theory. There's also this creative side of production. Of course, knowing music theory is very nice when you want to define a special mood in your production. But the most important thing is actually to train your ears. And the way I trained my ears was to recreate different famous melodies. And that is actually why this channel exists today. Because when I started out producing, I found a lot of people who made projects of existing tracks, and I tried to replicate them. And through that process, I learned to train my ear to know what sounds right. And in that way, I actually learned music theory from recreating famous tracks. So don't go out and spend a lot of money practicing and learning music theory right away, because you might actually learn it along the way. The second thing I wish I knew when I started producing is the importance of mixing and learning how to mix. When you start producing and you come up with cool tracks, you might start to notice that the track will sound muddy in the car or sound different on different devices. Jump right into the mixing aspect of production right away. It will help you in the future. This aspect of producing is important, so you learn about dealing with different frequencies, how to compress your tracks, how to place your instruments in the mix, the spatial aspect of music production, and how to use effects and utilize them to create spaces within music, and try to use different effects to create depth and spaces within your music production. Mixing is a very important aspect, as it helps you create a well-balanced mix that sounds good everywhere. So do not neglect that part of music production and jump into the mixing aspect of music production right away. Don't hesitate to get started. It might seem intimidating when you start out, but in the long process, it will make a lot of sense and improve your music. The next thing I wish I knew when I started producing is the arrangement of your production. You should see FL Studio as a large working desk where you're gonna place a lot of stuff, and this stuff might eventually get complicated. Therefore, setting up your project so you can easily overlook it is very important. Using color codes and placing them with similar stuff so that you know that this is a type of instruments and this is a type of instruments. And how do we do that? Well, let's jump into FL Studio and have a look on how to arrange your project so it's easy to overcome, right? So there are different ways to arrange your project. The main principles are the one I'm gonna show you now. So let's say you have a pattern up here. I have made 4 patterns. I have the kick, the clap, the hi-hats, and the snare. A very basic beat, basically. So let's say I want to put the kick in here. I want to put the clap from here, and then the hi-hats here, the snare here. So the first thing you can do to arrange your project is, of course, naming these an appropriate name for whatever your instrument is. Once you've done that, you can go to the pattern up here, right-click it, and then rename and color it. So let's write kick, and then you can give it a specific color. You can color code it however you want to, but I usually do it so that the drums and the cymbals have a similar color, and the leads and the basses will have a similar color. So you can kind of, when you come into your project, you can see, okay, the leads are here, the bass are here, the pads are here, and etc. So let's say I give the kick a green color here. And you'll see that up here, it will change its color to green. And once you've done that, you go to pattern 2 and say clap. So you know it's a clap, and you can give it an appropriate color. Let's go purple, and so on and so on. You can of course also give these the same color. So let's, down here you can see the colors you already used in your project. Accept, and when I press enter, you can see that this now has the same color, and this one will have the same color here, and so on and so on. And what you can do now is, if you go to the track where you put in your instrument, if you right click it you can also change color and name it. The good thing about naming it in the pattern is that you can just come over here, when you put it in the playlist, you can just right click here and press auto name, and it will give it the same name as your pattern. And then you can also change the color to the same color here, whoop, and you'll see it now has the same color throughout here. And that you can do for the clap as well, auto name. I don't know why it didn't give the same color here, but now it did, and that's the way it should be. So when you press auto name, it also gives it the color. We can just quickly try it for the third pattern here, which is the hi-hat. Give it a, let's say, come over to here and auto name, and it will maybe hi-hat. You can also give it these icons here, so that you can quickly look through, okay, this is violins, this is pianos, you know. And that's just the way I would do it. Now let's say you want to create an automation clip for each of these. What I usually do is if we just insert one here, I will right click this and I will say group with above track. Now it creates this arrow that you can click on and it will expand the track underneath. So let's say I'm just quickly gonna make an automation clip for volume here, create automation clip. You will see that the automation clip is here. I can then auto name it like so. And when I don't want to look at the automation clips anymore, I can just click on this little icon and it will kind of hide the automation clip, and you can then just expand it again and see it again. And that's a good way to organize your projects, because now this is just 4 patterns, but when you're gonna have like 25 patterns, it's quickly gonna be a quick mess, because you're both gonna have patterns and you're gonna have samples in your playlist, automation clips, several automation clips for each pattern, and it's quickly gonna be quite messy to look at. So this is a good way to organize it and do it from the beginning, because otherwise you just have to make a cleaning up job, which is gonna take a lot of time as well. So yeah, this is a good tip. My next thing on the list is the stretching tool and the tempo detection. And that's because when I started out producing, I imported acapellas and other samples, which wasn't in time with the tempo I had. And learning how to deal with these two things is very crucial when you get further in your music production career. Learning how to get your samples in sync with the tempo, and also dealing with the stretching tool, also using the stretching tool to get your samples in sync, is a thing I really wished to have known. I'm gonna show you 2 examples of how to deal with these 2 tools. And let's see the FL Studio. So let's take a quick look at the tempo and the stretching option. So right now I have a project here and its tempo is 140. I have the sample here and it's 128 BPM, whereas as I just mentioned, this is 140 BPM. When I play this, if I just press it on the metronome so we can hear the rhythm, when I play it you can hear that it's out. And how do I get that in sync? So there is actually a very easy way to do this. If you right click here, you can press fit tempo, and then you just choose your tempo. I've seen that when you're using above 100 BPM, it's best to often press the 100 to 200 instead of the 75 to 150. So it's 140, so we press 100 to 200, and then it's gonna detect the tempo for a sample, and it's just gonna stretch it into sync. You might notice on some samples, it's a bit difficult to hear on this one, is that when you are changing it, it actually changes its pitch. Let me just quickly find an acapella so you can hear that. So when I play this acapella here, fits very well and nothing has happened, but when I then stretch it, you can hear it changes the pitch. And the stretch tool is up here. You can see when it's on, it's this double arrow hit here. The way to fix that is to double click on the sample, go to mode, press down here, and instead of resample, change it to stretch or stretch pro. When you press stretch, it's gonna maintain the pitch and just make it quicker. So whenever I stretch this, it's gonna maintain the pitch. Whereas in resample, it's gonna be pitched down. The last thing you can do is, if I just take the other sample again, instead of detecting the tempo, let's say this is now 100. Sample. And remove the time. Now let's say this project is at a 100 BPM and I cannot detect the tempo. Sometimes FL Studio can't detect the tempo, and that might be because the beat in the sample is quite hard to find for FL Studio's AI or whatever that detects the tempo. So let's say that I want to fit this into the tempo now and I don't know the tempo of it. You can either try and detect the tempo of the sample and change it, but if you use the stretch tool, you can try and count the beats in the sample. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know I have to hit this on the 4th. What I can do now is if I go to the slice tool, I can just slice it here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So on this beat here, I want to have this end here. So I can just go here, then press Alt, the Alt key, and then just drag it to here. And now I can go out of the stretch tool and just find the whole sample. And you can see it's still a bit out of sync, and that's because there is minor details when you do this. So the longer the sample you can do it, all the better. So let's see, you can see this one has to hit on this line here. So go to this cutting tool again, zoom all the way in, try and find this point here, go to the stretch tool, and then just press the Alt key and stretch it here, and then once again expand the sample. And as you can see, again, still small pieces where it's a bit off. So again, it should then just go all the way down here. And I can hear that the clap is here. Slice it, remove, go to here, and like that. And now the sample should be in sync. Let me just put it to the stretch. And there we have it in sync with the melody. When you do it on a very short sample, let's say this is the full length of the sample, and you just choose to do it for this, there is a bigger chance of it being offset in the long distance. So the longer the distance of the sample, you can count the tempo and then use this cutting tool. The better and more precise you will sync the audio to the tempo in your playlist. The last thing I wish I'd known in FL Studio is the channel rack and the grouping option that comes within the channel rack. Sometimes when you're going through all your patterns in the channel rack, it can become quite complicated to know where you placed all your instruments in the channel rack. Knowing how to group them in different categories is a life hack that I want you guys to know, and I'm gonna show you how to do it in FL Studio, so let's jump right into it. Alright, so the last thing we mentioned here was the channel rack and the grouping, and we talked a bit about the channel rack here and in terms of how to organize your project, but a secret thing is that you can actually also group the different elements within the channel rack so they are easier to find. So let's say I have a kick on pattern 1, on pattern 2 I have the clap, on pattern 3 I have the hi-hat, on pattern 4 I have these, and then let's say these are leads. What you can do is if you highlight these, you can press Alt G and you can make a group name. So let's for instance call this drums, press enter. And then you can only see the drums when you navigate to this one. So it will leave all the other elements out. The good thing about this is that sometimes you have a channel rack that looks a bit like this, where you have all the samples that you have put into a playlist, you have all the automation clips, and by doing these grouping, you can actually quickly sort out all of these elements by going to here and just pressing drums. I will only see the drums within my project. I can also make another one. Let's say I want these 3 here. I can now press this one here and go to leads, and I will only see the leads within my project. So now I can sort it between drums and leads, and then go to all, and I can see my whole project. And that's also a very nice thing to know when you're producing, because it also helps you organize and create this overview over your project, so it don't become too complicated to navigate through. So producers, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please jump down and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and peace.